Greetings and welcome. My name is Ryan O'Rourke from Stay Creative Painting. I truly hope you enjoy today's 10-minute painting. This new series essentially illustrates my attempts at creating a painting in a very short period of time. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I do not, but that's what keeps it interesting and fun, so stick around and enjoy the tips and tricks. Of course, if you have any questions or inquiries regarding today's lesson, please leave me a comment in the comment section down below. I'm always here and happy to help. Speaking of help, if you'd like assistance with the drawing process, I do offer the traceable along with the extended version of this 10-minute painting lesson up over on Patreon, where you can find a back catalog of over 50 exclusive hour-long lessons and their traceables as well. Up over on Patreon, we also have a private Facebook group where we all kind of share our work, help each other out. It's a great place for artists to kind of keep each other engaged and make sure that we're consistently creating together. It's also a great way to share your work with me. On top of that, over at the Alpine level of Patreon, I've also just added all 5 of my ebooks, including Acrylics for Beginners, which essentially is the essential, is everything you need to know about acrylic painting before you jump into your first acrylic painting. In it, we talk about how to blend our colors, about color theory, about creating great compositions, rendering 3-dimensional subjects, which brushes to use, really everything you need to know. And it's also offered individually over on my Etsy. Speaking of ebooks, again, for those of you who don't love the drawing process, I do have 3 ebooks full of traceables over on Patreon and Etsy. So if you're interested in any of that, go check it out. It is full of great resources, and I'm sure it'll help you just really speed up that process of getting to be a better painter. With that said, I would like to note that again, I am here and happy to help. So if you have any questions, again, let me know. Now let's jump into today's 10-minute painting lesson. As per usual, I would like to quickly touch on our pigments. So here I have a sap green, a primary blue, titanium white, Mars black. I have a brilliant purple, medium magenta, and a dioxazine purple as well. Now these 3 are quite unusual for us. They are some fun new colors I thought I'd try. You're more than welcome to go out and buy them, but you can also mix them using the primary colors, and I'll leave a little description of how to do that in the video description in the section of materials. So you can go and check that out. You're also more than welcome to use whatever purples or pinks you have or would like to mix. Don't worry about it too much. This is meant to be a fun, relaxed painting process, and make sure you keep it that way. Don't get too hung up on the small stuff. So with that, let's jump into today's 10-minute painting lesson. I'm going to begin here today by taking my large flat-headed brush, making sure that the tip of it is nice and damp. Then I'm going to head over to my palette, grab a good amount of titanium white, about 1/3 of that in primary blue, and I'll mix up this really bright, thick blue pigment. I'll then apply this to the base of my horizon here on my canvas and start blending upwards, as you can see. If you want to avoid a very streaky aesthetic, use a very soft touch of your brush. The more pressure you add, generally the more it will push paint to either side and create something that's a bit more stroke heavy, which can actually be a really nice look. So play with it, have fun, and figure out what you personally like in these lessons. So here, I'm kind of going over my drawing, and I'm okay with that because I used a fine-tipped black Sharpie, which will show through my first couple layers of paint, and it's something I only really advise using on canvas board because it can show through the back of regular canvas, but we are using canvas board today, so we can use that added tool, and it just helps make things a little bit faster so we don't have to redraw all of our subjects. Anyways, here I'm using a bit more of a blue-heavy mixture, using less titanium white, applying it to the top, and just blending it downwards. I'm eventually going to have the 2 meet in the middle. Here I have more of a middle mixture. It's right in between the bottom value and the top, and I'm just blending one into the other. It's remaining wet for as long as it is because I am using a bit of water on my brush. We'll extend the wet life of our paint and just keep it nice and flowing. So just like that, we have a great blue sky. Now I'll take some of that paint off my brush, create a slightly darker blue with just a hint of Mars black. I'm just using the corner of my brush to grab that. I don't want much on my brush at all. And I'll just create a nice little blue set of mountains here in the background. And they're blue because they're getting a lot of atmospheric and reflective light from the sky. So just like that, we have something nice and easy. Try to make sure that your mountains are slightly different from one another. Maybe a little bit taller, maybe one's a little bit wider. And then I'll grab a hint more Mars Black and I'll work this down into the bottom and blend it up a little bit. This will give them some depth. It'll make it look like the light's hitting the tops of the mountains. It's working its way down towards the bottom, and as we get towards the bottom, we lose that light, and therefore we have a three-dimensional subject. The light comes down, it wraps, and you have a bit of a highlight, a bit of a mid-tone, a bit of a darker area. You can even make the tops of the mountains a little bit brighter as well, if you just want to continue with that. Here I'm just adding on a little bit of stroke, a little detail there. Maybe create some pathways, areas that light's catching, and I'm just bringing it down to the bottom. I'm working back and forth in these Z-shaped patterns that are on the same angle as the top of the mountain. I'll also try to bring them over into one another. That way it feels nice and cohesive. There we go. Now I'll take some of this darker purple, and again, remember you can mix your own darker purple, don't worry about it. Take a hint of Mars Black, about double that in titanium white, because Mars Black is a very strong pigment. And I'll essentially apply this to the base of my lavender fields here. Lilac fields. Purple flower fields. It's okay to have fun with it. It's okay to change it as you go. Who knows, maybe you have one favorite flower today and you have another one tomorrow. If you paint it with enough implication, if you paint it loosely enough, it can be really whatever you want it to be. There we go. So I'm just starting with this nice dark base that we can work on top of. I'm using the larger flat-headed brush because it can hold a lot of pigment and because it can create those nice sharp lines. Now I want this to be a little bit darker, so I'm going back with a hint more Mars Black, and you can see just what an effect Mars Black has. It quickly darkens it. You know what, that actually looks really nice. Good. Glad we got there. So with that, now clean off my brush, and I'll switch to this older flat-headed brush. You see how the bristles kind of leaf off in varying directions? I have an instructional video on how to make that in the description, so you can go and find that. It's in the video about materials where we talk more in depth about all of them, but it's easy to make. You just take a regular flat-headed brush and then you peel back the bristles until it looks a little disheveled. But here, as you can see, I make these tapping motions with it, and I just render all of these implications so quickly. And it's just going to look like lots of little flowers out in the field. And that's why I said, again, you can really make it a field of whatever flower you like, because when they're this far away, they just look like little taps of color. It's really beautiful. Great pattern. Now I'm trying not to do too many taps, because if we do, we'll essentially fill in all of the darker area that we just applied, and we need that contrast of dark and light. That's where it's really going to build depth and make it all pop. I also don't want to incorporate too much titanium white, as that will desaturate our pigment more and more. It'll brighten it, but it'll take out that vibrancy. So we just want that right balance. I'm trying to create a lot wider taps in the foreground as well, and closer ones in the background, because generally you can see more detail in the foreground because it's closer to you, and in the background it's much more kind of bunched together and you just don't see that same amount. So there you can see lots of condensed taps, and here in the foreground lots of wider, larger ones. There we go. Now I'm going to switch back to the larger flat-headed brush. I'm going to get more of that very dark purple we used for the base of our field, just like so. And I'm going to create a base for our larger flowers, which we have right here. You can see I'm just doing a little bit of a tap. That way the edges have little protruding areas, and those will be great for little petals and flowers. There we go. working hard to avoid the petals, or rather the foliage that we have at the bottom, because this is quite a dark pigment, and generally the darker the pigment is, the harder it is to see through it. So while I use that black fine tip Sharpie to make those initial markings, probably won't see them all too well when it's covered with this. So I'm just going back, giving everything a nice good coverage. There we go. And now we can take our medium-sized flat-headed brush, grab some sap green, a little bit of Mars black, hint of titanium white, that'll thicken it. And we can create some foliage right down here. Give us a new color in the painting, make it look nice and fresh. Create some fairly easy leaves right here. And I'm using the medium-sized flat-headed brush because it's big enough to deliver a lot of paint, but it's also small enough to create real detail. So it's a great balance. Now I want some highlights on the top of it to give it some depth, so I'll just take some titanium white, work that in there, see? Now it has this nice area on the top that's receiving light, same with that one. Do that down here, and you can continuously build that up. And if you feel like it gets a little bit too gray, you can go back in with some more pure sap green. But I want it to be slightly gray because I want the purple to stand out. Now I'll take my smallest flat-headed brush, grab a little bit of our brighter purple, a little bit of our medium magenta, and mix those two up with a hint of titanium white. And I'll just start creating lots of little petals and flowers on here. And I'll try to create some that are in bunches of 3, some that are in bunches of 1, and I'm just trying to make this as diverse as I possibly can. And as we get closer to us, I'll also make them a bit larger, and I'm spacing them out just a little bit, just to give me some option later on. There we go. Can make them kind of in an X-shaped pattern as well. Can be quite fun. And if you find it's blending into the purple, just let that initial layer dry. I would, but I'm trying to do this in 10 minutes. So it's going to blend a little bit for me, which is actually nice. It'll look quite cohesive, the two pigments working together. But there we are. Now I'm just about out of time, so I'm going back in with a slightly lighter version and building in some extra diversity. The more different shades of purple and pink you have, the more interesting it will look. And I'm trying to make mine a bit more purple heavy, but you're more than welcome to make them a bit more pink heavy. But anyways, I think I'm just about out of time. So there we have our 10-minute version of the painting. Now let's see what I can do with an extra 20 minutes and turn it into a 30-minute lesson. So there we have it. That is our 10-minute version of this painting. As per usual, I do want to spend a little more time with it, so I'm going to add 20 minutes to the clock, see what I can do in under half an hour. I'll include a sped up version of that right here, and I'll include the real-time version with the descriptions over on Patreon along with the traceable. Hopefully this added segment gives you some extra inspiration, keeps you excited, gives you some extra ideas. So I hope you enjoy and have fun watching this little piece as well. So anyways, there we have it. That is our 10-minute version. That is our half an hour version. I really hope you enjoyed and you feel inspired to go out and create your own marvelous piece. As per usual, if you'd like any help, I am here and happy to help. Just leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to share your work with me, you can do so over on the private Facebook group, which we offer over on Patreon. Again, up there you can get the traceable, the extended version, over 50 hour-long lessons, access to polls, plenty of really fun, great resources, all of which will be linked in the description. I will see you next Saturday with a brand new 10-minute painting. So until then, this was a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed. Go create something great, or maybe watch another 10-minute painting lesson. Regardless, I will see you soon. Thank you for stopping by, and above all, as always, stay creative.
Hello, my name is Howie. It's dark. It's really dark. I hate this. Where did my son go? I miss my son. Mommy! Mommy, 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 mommy! 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 Rain is literal garbage. It's raining garbage. Where did you go, my only love? The light in my sky.